Hello everyone, my name is Michael and this is Brilliant Blunders, a channel that's all about me playing chess. In this video I'm going to cover the 8th and final round of Pakleza Cup. And as you can see I have black pieces again. This was slightly unlucky, but I got, out of 8 games, I got black pieces 5 times. Apparently that's possible and it sometimes happens. So yeah, and I was really disappointed about that because so far in the tournament I won all 3 games with the white pieces, and with the black pieces I got 2 draws and 2 losses. So there was like a very clear difference in my performance depending on the piece color I play. But yeah, you know what to do. You have to play anyway. So my opponent starts the game with c4, I reply with b6, d4, bishop b7, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, e6, a3, and this is exactly the same setup that I've played the last round. So exactly the same thing. Here I play bishop e7, which I found is not great. It's not a bad move. There is still theory that justifies that, but the best move for black in this position is to play d5. And the reason for that is that if you don't play d5, then white will at some point. And this is not a bad position. d5 castles. This has been played, and white scores pretty well in these positions, and I think I've played such thing like that once, and it's really uncomfortable for black because you have very little space, and yeah, it's just hard to break through. The pawn is also blocking my bishop, so a very unpleasant position to play. Why I did not like this d5 idea here is because it blocks my bishop. But you know, sometimes you will be able to liberate that square, because either you take on c4, or if opponent takes, then you recapture with the knight, and then you can move the knight and open up your bishop. So that's what I should have played and what I will play from now on. But okay, I played bishop e7, and here my opponent did something different from the previous round. The last round I think my opponent played bishop to f4. Here my opponent played g3, so instead going for the fianchetto setup. I castle, he plays bishop g2, so we both completed our setups. Here I played d6, which I marked as a dubious move, and because it does not play against this expansion through d5 at all. What probably was the best move was just going knight e4 right away, so and the line would go something like this, and I can now break with c5 maybe. But you know, this is not the end of the world. It's nothing bad is happening to me yet. My opponent castles. Now I go knight e4. Takes. He goes rook e1. I develop my knight to d7. He goes knight h4, so offering the trade of bishops, which I found a little strange, because probably we both were counting on the strength of this light squared bishop on the long diagonal. He decided to exchange it. I took. I have nothing better to do. I cannot move anywhere because my rook is hanging, and so I basically have to take. He recaptures with the knight, and now I make a really bad mistake by going f5. So I was just kind of going for the same structure that I had the last game with f5, but in this game this position is very different from the one I had previously, and f5 is actually a bad move because it weakens this e6 pawn. And yeah, there is no more white bishops, so this diagonal is empty, but there are no pieces to contest it, right? So maybe one player will put the queen there, but the white squares, like blocking the white squares, is not as important as it would have been had the white bishops been on the board. But mostly it's about weakening this e6 pawn. And my opponent exploits that immediately with knight to f4. So an alternative that I could have and maybe should have played is to attack the center through c5. And then maybe we have something like this, and then maybe I play d5, so we have this, just pawn center staring at each other, a lot of tension, and yeah, more or less equal position. But he plays f4, just attacking my pawn right away, and it's not easy to actually defend it. I went rook f6, this is the only move that actually defends the pawn. He goes e4, just expanding in the center, and here I made an probably inaccurate move, e5. A better move here would be f takes e4. If he recaptures with a rook, then I can play e5. He goes here with the knight. I defend my bishop. D takes, and here it would be probably intuitive to take with the knight, but it is actually wrong. This loses material because he takes here, and if I take with the queen, then obviously f4, and my knight is pinned, and he will capture it. And if I take with the rook, and he goes here, skewering the rook and queen, and it's actually more than that, because, and yeah, let's say if I move here, he takes, I take, then he gives me a check, and if I move, he takes my rook. So yeah, I'm losing a lot of material, and yeah, I'm probably getting checkmated even, right? Because I cannot escape that. Yeah, so that's why in this position here I cannot retake with the knight. I would have to retake with the pawn, and yeah, I would have to just deal with the fact that I have an isolated pawn. I'm probably slightly worse, but that's what it is. So that was after the move f takes e4. What I played instead was e5, and here again what he played is d take e5, which is not the best, because the best is again this knight jump, right? Just attacking my rook, attacking my bishop, and if I move back with the rook, he can then take on f5, and I cannot really recapture, right? Because then d takes, rook takes, knight takes, here, and again, just weakening this diagonal to the king exposes my rook, and this is like a motive that's coming up in a lot of variations in this position. So that's why I cannot capture with the rook here. So I just have to accept the fact that I've just lost the pawn, and instead play something like bishop to f6 or something like that. So after e5, my opponent took on e5. Okay, yeah, he took on e5, attacking my rook. I'm taking back with the knight. Now he takes on the f5, just exposing the attack of my rook. I take the pawn, and here, after this queen d5 infiltration, I was pretty convinced that I'm now in serious trouble. I'm probably losing this game, and you will see why. So I of course have to go with the king, Good news is that my rook is not hanging because queen is still on d8 protecting it. Now he goes knight to e6, just completely infiltrating into my position, attacking the queen, so probably wanting it to distract it from defense of the rook. I go queen g8, which is a bad move, and I will get to it in a moment. Okay, so he goes f4, just trying to attack my knight, and my knight cannot move because the rook is hanging, right? So the queen is attacking the rook. So that's the idea behind it. But here I have a very nice move, and I remember in this position over the board, I thought like I'm completely lost. I've just lost a piece. My position is horrible. He has the initiative, he has the material advantage, he has everything, and I was just looking for some like desperate attempts to make some complications. But actually, when I turn on the engine in this position, it says that black is winning here. And black is winning because of the move that I actually played. I played the move c6, and I will sound probably like an idiot here, but during the game, I was convinced that he can take with the queen, completely overlooking the fact that the pawn is protected by the knight. So I thought like queen takes, rook goes here, queen goes back. Let's do this and see what happens, basically. But my opponent was not a complete idiot and did not take here because he knew this would blunder a queen. And instead, he went back to e4, which is not the greatest because it just leaves the queen on this file, which you will see why it's bad. I took the knight because now his knight is undefended, so now I am up a piece. And here he made the last crucial mistake. F takes e5, so trying to recapture this material to regain the lost piece immediately, but this just fails because I can take with the rook. Now the queen has no squares that it can protect the rook from, so the queen takes pawn, rook takes rook, and here my opponent resigned, and this is actually a forced checkmate from this point. Like king g2, queen e2, king h3, here, 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 here. If king here, then of course this is checkmate. So okay, so let's go back. Let's go back a little bit and see what was wrong. So in this position, apparently, instead of f4, it is better for white to go bishop f4. And if I go c6 now, then he actually can exploit the fact that my queen is on g8 and my king has no squares. So he can actually sack his queen. Bishop takes e5, I take the queen, and now he goes bishop takes g7, and I have to give up my queen, right? Queen takes, knight takes, and now if I take the knight, he takes my bishop, I can cover, he takes, and we have a rook endgame when he has two extra pawns, so should be easily winning for him with the extra two pawns. And that's why this f4 move was not the best solution. But let's go back even so one move earlier, because here I mentioned that queen g5, queen g8 is the incorrect move, and this is exactly because of that idea, right? With bishop f4, just the fact that my king has no squares. So instead of that, I can do a similar thing by going queen to c8. And here, I'm doing the same thing. I'm attacking the knight. So after I chase the queen away, the knight will be hanging. But my king has the g8 square that it can go to in case it's checked. And in here, as you can see, if bishop f4, then again I go c6, bishop takes, queen takes here. This whole combination does not work, right? So white has given up his queen for basically nothing. And let's see the other way to go. So what if he goes f4 here? Here c6, queen g2, queen takes e6. Now he can take my my knight. Rook takes, queen takes. And we have this position where I am a pawn up, but it's, yeah, I'm definitely better, but not, I wouldn't say it's winning yet. Black has an advantage, but it's, you know, it's just a pawn, actually. It's not even a pawn, maybe, because white can go here. And the king is pretty exposed, so that may cause some troubles for white. But on the other hand, I have a king that's exposed to some back rank ideas. So yeah, so this would actually even be close to equality. There's one more thing that I wanted to cover. What if he didn't make this silly mistake of taking the knight, right? So just staying here, because in here you have this kind of weird tension. Well, this is kind of like a Schrödinger's knight. So white cannot take the knight because rook takes, but also black cannot move the knight because then the queen hangs. So it's kind of like a tense situation. So let's say white plays some other move, like bishop d2, just maybe trying to put extra pressure on the knight. I can move the rook here. He goes maybe bishop b4. Queen moves away from the pin. Queen moves here. Now bishop moves away from the pin, just supporting the knight. And if he takes the knight now, I can take. And yeah, he's regaining his lost knight eventually. He is down a pawn, and maybe his position is slightly worse because I have these powerful doubled rooks in here. My bishop is arguably a little better because I can shut his bishop down by c5, a5, and my bishop is already threatening something here. But yeah, even though this looked like he's down a piece, he's eventually getting this knight back, I think. But it would be pretty hard to see, although, you know, if it was pretty easy to see that f takes e5 loses, so that was like a very good reason not to play something else. For me, it was very surprising that it wasn't as one-sided as I thought it was, because I thought that throughout the game my opponent was just pushing me. I just made bad moves. I had the losing position, and like my kind of last hope effort somehow worked. All right, that was the last game. I finally managed to win with the black pieces. In the end, I had 5 points out of 8, 4 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. So a pretty good result. I finished in 5th place out of like 20 people playing, I think. So yeah, a pretty nice result, which I was happy with. I was not happy with how I threw away some of the games, but I was happy with the fact that even in the ones that I was losing, I was fighting and causing trouble for my opponents. I hope you enjoyed these games, and give this video a like, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel if you want to continue watching me play games, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.